The air is thick with tension as Malik steps into the upscale Beverly Hills shopping district, a place where the rich go to flaunt their wealth. He's just trying to buy a gift, his hand wrapped around a simple leather bag. But before he can take another step, a voice cuts through the calm. "You people can't afford to even walk here." Malik freezes, his heart racing. The voice belongs to a white woman, mid-40s, clad in designer clothes, standing at the entrance of a luxury boutique. Her words are venom, spat out with disdain as she stands in his way, blocking his path with an air of superiority. "What did you just say?" Malik's voice is calm, yet there's a tightness to it, his fists clenched at his sides. "I said what I said. This place is for people who actually matter. People like you don't belong here." Her face twists with judgment, her eyes scanning him as if he were nothing more than an inconvenience. Malik can feel the crowd slowly gathering around them, some hesitant, others indifferent. The injustice stings, but he keeps his composure, refusing to give her the reaction she wants. He won't let her take the high ground, not today. The woman steps forward, blocking his path entirely, her heels clicking sharply against the pavement. She relishes the attention, the glances from pedestrians who have stopped to watch the exchange unfold. "Move," Malik says, his voice firm, but his patience is running thin. "Oh, I'm not done," she replies with a smirk, basking in the attention as if she were the star of some performance. "You don't belong in these stores. You're just here to make the rest of us uncomfortable, aren't you?" Her voice grows louder, trying to draw in more spectators. She knows the power of a crowd, and she's using it, enjoying every second of her humiliation of him. Malik doesn't look away, but he feels the weight of their gazes on him, some sympathetic, others curious. "Don't listen to her," a voice from the crowd mutters, but the woman's defiance only grows. The crowd shifts uncomfortably, torn between wanting to intervene and being paralyzed by the discomfort of the situation. "Someone call security," she screams, her voice rising in panic, though Malik hasn't moved an inch. A bystander, eager to be part of the moment, starts filming with their phone. The red dot of the recording light flickers as it catches the scene, Malik's composure juxtaposed against her theatrics. "He's scaring me," the woman continues, her voice dripping with faux terror. "I don't feel safe. He's threatening me." Malik's eyes narrow as he watches her. The absurdity of the situation makes his blood boil. His presence alone, the color of his skin, is enough to make her feel unsafe. It's not him, it's the system she's built her world on. "Ma'am, you need to leave him alone," a passerby says, but the woman ignores it. Her drama is unfolding too perfectly, and now it's a spectacle she's unwilling to relinquish. The security guard arrives in no time, a tall man in his 30s, glancing quickly at Malik and then at the woman, his face an unreadable mask. The crowd shifts uneasily, but the tension in the air is palpable. "Sir, you need to leave," the guard says, not bothering to ask for Malik's side of the story. "I'm not leaving until you speak to me first," Malik responds, his voice steady, but underneath it there's a storm brewing. "You've heard her lies, but you haven't heard mine." The woman sneers, not letting up. "I knew it. You're just like the rest of them, filthy, unrefined. Why don't you just go back where you came from?" Her words hit harder than any blow, mocking his clothes, his accent, his very existence. She points to Malik's modest attire and scoffs. "Is this what you're going to wear to a luxury store? Where's your style, huh?" Her mockery stings, but Malik doesn't flinch. Instead, he stands tall, his jaw clenched, facing her words with the calmness of someone who has been here before. Every word she throws at him is a reminder of the systems that allow this behavior to thrive. The security guard takes a step forward, his gaze focused entirely on Malik, not once looking at the woman who's still playing the role of the victim. "Sir, I'm going to need you to leave the premises," the guard repeats, his tone more forceful now. Malik's pulse quickens, but he stands his ground, unwilling to let her win. "Did you even hear what she said?" Malik asks, his voice low but intense. Did you even hear her accuse me of things I didn't do? The guard doesn't respond. He's already made up his mind. The color of Malik's skin is all the justification he needs. You're making this harder than it has to be, the guard says, stepping closer, his stance suggesting it's time for Malik to go. But Malik refuses to move. Just ask her, Malik says, his voice a sharp contrast to the calm that surrounds him. Ask her what she's afraid of, or better yet, ask me why I'm here. The crowd murmurs, a few of them shaking their heads, but the tension lingers like smoke in the air. Malik locks eyes with the woman one last time, the calm in his gaze unnerving her. His voice drops, deliberate and heavy. Are you sure you want to do this? The question hangs in the air like a challenge, forcing her to consider the consequences of her actions. She stammers, taken aback, the tension in her eyes betraying the facade of confidence she once wore so comfortably. But before she can respond, Malik's phone buzzes. The screen lights up with an alert. Breaking news. Beverly Hills. Incident turns into viral story. Racism in the spotlight. The crowd around them shifts uneasily. What will happen next? What does Malik have in store for her? What will be the outcome of this public confrontation? The story isn't over. Far from it. Malik's life began in the heart of a struggling black neighborhood, a place where dreams were often whispered about but seldom realized. Raised by his mother, a single parent who worked long hours in 2 jobs just to keep food on the table, he learned early on that the world outside wasn't kind to people who looked like him. Yet, despite the constant pressure to settle for less, Malik's mother instilled in him a quiet resilience. She taught him that his worth wasn't tied to the opinions of others or the limits society tried to impose on him. Keep your head down, work hard, and make your own way, she would say, her voice a steady rhythm that gave him hope. And so, he did, never asking for help, but always pushing forward. As Malik grew older, the walls of his neighborhood felt both confining and familiar. In school, he was a quiet student, never one to seek the spotlight but always excelling when given the chance. Yet, no matter how hard he worked, the system never seemed to see him. Teachers would praise his classmates for their potential, but Malik was often left to wonder why his potential was ignored. "You're just one of the quiet ones, huh?" they'd say, not knowing how much those words cut. They weren't just dismissing his work, they were dismissing him. Despite his accomplishments, Malik learned that being black in a predominantly white world often meant you had to fight just to be seen. Still, he carried on, quiet, determined, and always pushing through the barriers that no one seemed to notice. After graduating from MIT with a degree in computer science, Malik thought that doors would finally open for him. Armed with knowledge, ambition, and the confidence that comes with having overcome so many odds, he pitched his ideas to investors in Silicon Valley. But instead of being met with enthusiasm, he was met with polite dismissals. "I'm just not sure you're quite the right fit for this company," one investor said, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We're looking for someone who blends in a little more, you know, someone with the right vibe." Malik's stomach churned. He had never once thought of himself as needing to blend in, but to these investors the suit Malik wore wasn't enough. His blackness, his authenticity, his whole identity, none of it fit into their narrow view of success. Still, he didn't let it deter him. He'd learned long ago not to wait for approval, especially not from people who would never give it. Frustrated with the doors that wouldn't open, Malik decided to build his own. He began working on a fintech app, one that would empower low-income families and minority communities, providing financial literacy tools and affordable access to resources. It wasn't easy. He worked late into the night, coding and refining the app until it was something he could be proud of. And then, to his surprise, it hit. The app went viral. People from all walks of life, especially from underserved communities, embraced the tool with open arms. The success was overwhelming, but it felt different this time. He had built something real, something that wasn't just a product. It was a lifeline for those who had been ignored by the systems that were supposed to support them. Malik's dream had become a reality, and it didn't need anyone else's approval to thrive. With success came wealth, money that Malik had once only dreamed of. But unlike others who flaunted their riches, Malik remained grounded. His clothing was simple, his car unassuming. He could have bought anything he wanted, but he didn't need luxury to remind him of where he came from. People forget who they are when they get too much, Malik often said to his friends, his voice steady, knowing how easy it could be to get caught up in the trappings of success. He stayed true to his roots, often visiting his old neighborhood, speaking to the kids who reminded him of his younger self. It wasn't about showing off. It was about showing up, for the people who needed someone to believe in them. On this particular day, after a particularly grueling week of meetings and calls, Malik decided to treat himself. He'd always dreamed of owning a sleek, black Lamborghini Aventador. And today, he was going to make that dream come true, even if just for a test drive. He walked into the dealership, his steps steady and sure. The salesman greeted him with a friendly smile, clearly not expecting what was to come. After some paperwork and brief exchanges, Malik sat behind the wheel of his dream car, the engine purring to life. He grinned, feeling the power beneath his fingers. For once, it wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about rewarding himself for all the years of struggle and sacrifice. As he sped through the city, Malik couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. This was his moment, his success. Yet little did he know, this very day, his life would intersect with someone who would underestimate him all over again. And this time, it would be in front of a crowd that would witness everything. The Lamborghini hummed as he turned down the street, not knowing that his encounter with a woman who would dismiss him as just another broke guy was just moments away. Malik had just stepped up to the sleek glass doors of the luxury watch store when a voice sliced through the silence. "Are you lost?" The question wasn't a simple inquiry, it was a statement. It oozed with suspicion, condescension, and an unmistakable sense of entitlement. Malik froze. His eyes locked onto Victoria Hale, standing near the entrance, her arms crossed, a look of disdain etched into her perfectly made-up face. She wasn't even looking at him like he was a person. She looked at him like he was an obstacle, a potential threat. Malik's throat tightened. He wasn't sure what he had done to deserve that cold reception, but in that moment he realized it wasn't about him at all. It was about everything he represented, everything she assumed he was. "Excuse me," Malik asked, his voice even, though his heart began to race. "I'm just here to buy a watch." Victoria's lips curled into a tight smile. "A watch, huh? For yourself, I assume? Or maybe a gift?" Her gaze lingered on him for a second longer than it should have, sizing him up, as though determining if he could even afford the air in the room. Malik tried to ignore the knot in his stomach, stepping forward, pushing through the awkwardness. He didn't want to make a scene. He just wanted to buy his mother a watch, simple as that. The confrontation stung, but Malik refused to let it show. He had a clear purpose. This was for his mother. Flashbacks flashed in his mind. A younger version of himself, sitting at his kitchen table with his mom, helping her with bills, watching her work endless hours in a job that barely paid enough to get by, but she had always made sure he knew his worth. She'd saved every penny she could for years, and now Malik had the means to give her something special. It wasn't just a watch. It was a thank you for everything she had done for him. "I'm here for my mom's birthday gift," Malik said quietly, his fingers brushing the silver watch case in front of him. "She's been wanting one of these for years." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, but Victoria's expression remained unchanged. "Oh, how quaint," she muttered under her breath, turning away as if he were invisible. Inside the store, the atmosphere was thick with quiet judgment. Malik moved through the aisles, feeling the eyes of the sales associates on him. Only, they weren't the kind of eyes that made you feel welcomed. They were the kind of eyes that lingered, assessing whether or not you belonged. A white couple strolled by, their presence immediately acknowledged with smiles, nods, and polite chatter. The associate assisting them was eager, almost too eager, as though his commission depended on every second of attention he gave them. Meanwhile, Malik stood there, the only black man in the room, completely ignored. No one approached him, no one offered help. A faint cough from a woman in the corner got the attention of a sales associate immediately. Malik could feel it. He was being passed over. They didn't see him as a customer. They saw him as something else. Someone who didn't belong in the luxurious space they occupied. He didn't let it show, but the isolation stung, deepening the cold he had already felt when Victoria spoke to him. As Malik continued browsing the store, he caught a glimpse of Victoria again, this time by the exit. She was leaving, but before she did, she turned and fixed her gaze on him. The stare wasn't just a look, it was a sharp, judging glare, like she could pierce right through him. She didn't even need to say a word. The way her eyes burned with contempt said everything. It was clear she was watching him, sizing him up, making sure he didn't belong. Her posture was stiff, like a soldier standing at attention, as though daring him to do something wrong. Malik kept his head down, not wanting to engage, but her gaze lingered, like she was waiting for him to make a move. In that moment, he realized that this wasn't just about him being in the store. This was about something bigger, about being black and existing in spaces where you were never truly welcome. Victoria's judgment didn't stop with the stars. As Malik turned down the next aisle, he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. She had started following him. It wasn't a coincidence. He could feel her presence behind him, the tension in the air building with each step he took. He moved slowly, as though trying to ignore her, but the sensation of her eyes on him never stopped. Her footsteps were too deliberate, too calculated. With each step, Malik's gut twisted. He didn't know what she wanted from him. Was she going to say something else? Or worse, call the security guard over, falsely accusing him of something he hadn't done? He had seen it happen to too many people before. Victoria's body language grew more rigid, her eyes narrowing, her suspicion growing like a storm cloud above them. He was just trying to buy a watch, but to her he was something else entirely. And then it happened. Victoria's voice cut through the air again, sharper this time like a blade. Shopping for what? Dustbins on sale? Her words were coated with sarcasm, each one carefully chosen to strip away his dignity. The public space that had once felt so neutral now felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in. Malik's heart raced, his fists clenched at his sides. He stood still for a moment, just staring at her, as if waiting for the absurdity of her words to sink in. It was a microaggression, a cruel jab wrapped in a smile, designed to dehumanize him without leaving a mark. "You've got the wrong idea," Malik said, his voice steady but laced with an edge he didn't even know he had. Victoria didn't flinch. "Oh, do I?" Her smile didn't falter. She stood there, waiting for him to snap. Malik didn't speak for a moment. He was no stranger to this kind of treatment. He had learned to take it in stride, to keep his composure in the face of every subtle or overt slight. But today, something was different. The silence between them stretched, thick with tension. Around them, people started to notice. Whispers ran through the crowd, eyes flicking nervously from Malik to Victoria. Some were watching, some were pretending not to. But the energy had shifted. Malik didn't look at anyone but Victoria. His silence was like a simmering pot on the edge of boiling over. But he didn't snap. Not yet. He just stood there, waiting, knowing that what happened next could change everything. The air was thick with anticipation. And for Malik, every second of it was a reminder of how deep the injustice ran. Malik's hand paused just inches from the handle of the door. His heart skipped a beat as Victoria Hale's voice sliced through the air, sharp and deliberate, laden with suspicion. "This store doesn't do window shoppers," she spat, blocking his entrance with a firm stance. her eyes locking with his in a cold, calculated stare. The air felt thick, heavy with unspoken judgment. Her tone dripped with condescension as she scrutinized him like he was a criminal before he'd even stepped foot inside. Malik's face flushed with a mix of confusion and anger. He wasn't here to cause trouble. He just needed to pick up a watch for his mother's birthday. Simple, innocent. Yet here he was, standing at the threshold of a luxury store, being made to feel like an intruder in the very space he was paying to enter. "Excuse me?" Malik's voice came out quieter than he intended, but his frustration was bubbling just beneath the surface. He tried to push past, but Victoria stepped forward, unyielding. "Do you have an appointment?" she snapped, eyes scanning him from head to toe. "No? Then leave." Before Malik could respond, a security guard appeared at her side, his hand hovering near his earpiece, clearly ready for trouble. Victoria's demeanor shifted as she flipped the narrative in an instant. "Officer," she called out, her voice louder now. "This man, he was following me. I was just minding my business and he was stalking me through the aisles." Malik's stomach dropped. His mind raced. Was she really twisting the situation? How had he become the criminal in a matter of seconds? He glanced around, but no one seemed to notice the absurdity of her claim. The room felt like it was closing in on him, and his heart pounded as he realized the depths of her lies. "I wasn't," Malik began, but the guard cut him off with a dismissive wave, already moving closer to him. "No need for excuses, sir. Let's not make this difficult," the guard said, his tone dismissive, his gaze cold. Malik tried to speak up, but his words caught in his throat. The crowd had begun to gather. The first phone emerged from the crowd, then another and another. Bystanders pulled out their iPhones as the tension in the air thickened. Some were recording, others simply watching with casual indifference, as if this were nothing more than a spectacle. Malik stood there, immobilized by the eyes now trained on him. He wanted to speak, to explain, to scream, but the humiliation felt like a weight pressing on his chest. A few whispered words passed between the crowd, but Malik couldn't focus on them. The flashes of the cameras, the soft clicks of phone screens, each one felt like a sharp jab. It was as if they were all waiting for him to crack, eager to see how the scene would unfold. His mother's face flashed in his mind, and he pushed down the anger that threatened to overtake him. He wasn't here to fight, he was here to buy a gift. But somehow, he was becoming the villain in a story that wasn't his own. The security guard's voice was low and unfazed as he addressed Malik, his words carrying the weight of authority. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises," he said, his stance rigid, showing no interest in hearing Malik's side of the story. The words stung more than Malik anticipated. The store had already sided with Victoria, and no amount of reasoning would change that. Malik opened his mouth, ready to explain that he wasn't causing trouble, that he had every right to be there, but the guard wasn't having it. "No need to make a scene, just come with me." The guard's command felt like a slap to the face. The truth didn't matter. The accusations had already been made, and it was easier to push him out than to confront the real issue. The crowd murmured, watching as Malik slowly began to move toward the door. His pride, his dignity, they were being stripped away, piece by piece. And the worst part? No one was stepping in to help. The system had already chosen its side, and Malik was nothing more than a problem to be removed. Victoria's voice cut through the tension again, louder this time, her words pointed and full of venom. "People like you always cause trouble in nice places. Do you think you belong here? This isn't your kind of store. You should be grateful I'm letting you leave with some shred of dignity." The crowd's laughter was quick to follow, each chuckle a sting to Malik's soul. His eyes burned and his fists clenched, but he remained silent, holding back the rage that threatened to erupt. The words Victoria had spoken were laced with hatred, the kind of casual racism that some people wore like a badge of honor. To them, he was just another stereotype, another threat to be dealt with, and their approval of her words hurt more than any physical blow. "Get out," she sneered, as if his very presence was an affront to her existence. "This place is for people who know how to behave." The crowd's laughter rang in his ears, making him feel smaller, more invisible, as if everything about him had been reduced to a joke. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he said nothing. Silence was his only response, and in that silence Malik found himself wondering if anyone would ever truly see him as more than what Victoria had just described. The world seemed to pause. The laughter began to die down, leaving behind a quiet so thick it almost felt suffocating. The bystanders, once eager to see the show unfold, grew uncertain. Their phones dropped to their sides, their faces momentarily blank, unsure whether they should speak, laugh, or step in. Malik stood there, his heart hammering in his chest. The tension in the air was palpable. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for a flicker of empathy, a sign that someone, anyone, understood the injustice that had just unfolded. But all he saw were faces frozen in time, unsure of which way to lean. And then, in the midst of the silence, Malik's voice broke through, calm, clear, and controlled. He didn't shout, he didn't raise his voice, but there was something in the way he spoke, something that sent a chill down everyone's spine. "Okay, you asked for this," Malik said, his voice steady, almost too calm. There was a shift, subtle but undeniable. He wasn't backing down, not anymore. The power dynamic had changed. And though Malik hadn't raised a hand or shouted in anger, there was something in the way he held himself that made the crowd pause. He reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing the cool metal of his car key remote. The sound of a button being pressed echoed in the quiet, a sharp, unmistakable click. And with that, the crowd's nervous energy transformed into curiosity. What was about to happen next? The sharp sound of a Lamborghini's horn cuts through the tense air, followed by a sudden flash of light as the car's lights flicker on. The engine roars to life, echoing like thunder in the otherwise silent street. The crowd falls into stunned silence, their gazes turning toward the source of the sound. Malik, calm as ever, strides toward the car. The world around him feels like it's frozen, like the sound of that engine is the only thing moving. The car's sleek, glossy exterior gleams under the midday sun, its presence now undeniable. This isn't just any car, it's a statement. Victoria, her face still flushed from the confrontation, stares, her expression shifting from anger to confusion. The crowd, too, is in a trance, slowly processing the shift in the atmosphere. The power has shifted. And Malik is no longer the target. He's in control. The murmurs start, soft at first, almost like whispers, but then they grow louder. "Is that his car? No way, that can't be." Gasps ripple through the crowd. They are piecing things together, their eyes widening in disbelief. It's as though a veil has been lifted, and the truth is beginning to dawn on them. Victoria's face turns pale. She stumbles over her words, the anger from before now replaced with unease. "Wait, that's his car?" someone repeats. The whispers turn into full-blown conversations. Malik, the man they thought they knew, is someone else entirely. The disbelief spreads like wildfire. The victim in their eyes, Malik, has suddenly transformed into someone unrecognizable, someone powerful. The narrative is shifting, and Victoria can't stop it. Malik's steps are slow, deliberate. He moves toward the car with the quiet confidence of a man who knows exactly how to own a moment. No words, no confrontation, just silent composure. As he reaches the car, he opens the door with one swift motion, never breaking eye contact with the crowd. Every step he takes is filled with authority. He doesn't need to say anything to assert control. Inside the car, he pauses for a moment, his hand resting on the steering wheel. He looks back at the crowd, still silent, still unsure. And then, without a word, Malik gets in. He's not running away. He's not giving in. He's simply letting the silence speak for him. Victoria's voice cracks as she tries to regain control. Her desperation is palpable now, and she doesn't even realize how deeply her own biases are showing. "That's not your car. "You stole that, didn't you?" she blurts out, her eyes darting between Malik and the crowd. Her accusation, wild and unfounded, is an instinctual defense mechanism. She needs to believe that Malik doesn't belong in that car, that he can't possibly have earned it. But her words only expose her inability to process the reality of the situation. The truth is too much for her to handle, so she clings to the lie, hoping it will cover her shame. But it's clear the moment has slipped through her fingers. Malik's calmness only highlights her unraveling. A voice from the crowd cuts through the tension. "Lady," a man calls out, his tone cutting and sharp. "He's richer than all of us combined." The crowd shifts again. No longer is Malik the one being scrutinized. The power dynamics have shifted. The bystanders who once stood silent are now speaking up, reclaiming the truth. The collective realization is overwhelming, and the whispers turn to declarations. Victoria's face flushes, a mix of embarrassment and anger. She opens her mouth to argue, but the words stick in her throat. She's been exposed. Her attempt to degrade Malik only highlights her own ignorance. Malik sits in the car for a beat. The crowd watches with bated breath. Then, just as they begin to think it's over, Malik steps out again, his foot hitting the pavement with a quiet thud. The dramatic pause hits harder than anything he's said so far. The reversal isn't just for the crowd, it's for Victoria. It's his way of making a statement. He isn't just a passive observer of this moment. He's the one in control now. He doesn't need to engage in a shouting match. His actions speak louder than words ever could. From his pocket, Malik pulls out his phone, opening the store's app. He taps on the screen, showing Victoria the app's premium client status. Premier client, platinum tier. His finger hovers over the screen for a moment before he shows it to her. Victoria stares at the screen, her face paling further. "What? What is this?" she stammers. Malik's voice is low, calm. "This is proof that you've judged me without knowing anything about me. This is who I am." The crowd stands in silence, witnessing Victoria's arrogance disintegrate into complete confusion. She had no idea who she was dealing with, and now the lesson is clear for everyone. With a slight nod, Malik looks Victoria directly in the eyes. His words are simple, but they cut deeper than any insult. "Let me help you see better next time," he says. It's not an accusation, it's a lesson, a quiet, respectful rebuke. His calm demeanor only intensifies the moment. Malik's strength lies in his ability to hold his ground with grace, never losing himself in the chaos of the crowd. His words, though few, carry weight. He's teaching the lesson, not for her, but for everyone who witnessed her humiliation. Before Malik can even fully close the door to the Lamborghini, the store manager rushes out, panic evident on his face. "Mr. Jackson," he calls, his voice laced with urgency. "We're so sorry. Please, let us make this right." But it's too late. The damage has been done. The power of public humiliation can't be undone with a rushed apology. Malik doesn't respond. Instead, he lets the man's words hang in the air, unanswered. His silence is a reminder that status matters only when it's convenient for others. But dignity? Dignity lasts forever. Malik's voice is cold, clear, and final as he turns toward the manager. "I don't spend where I'm not welcome," he says, his words carrying the finality of a closing door. It's the last blow to the store's pride, and with those words, Malik turns away, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the distance. The crowd, now fully understanding the depths of the injustice they've witnessed, remains frozen in place. But it's Victoria who is left behind. Her mask of confidence has shattered. She has nothing left but the weight of her own ignorance. Victoria falters. Her eyes go wide, and before anyone can react, she collapses, her body crumpling to the ground. The crowd gasps, some retreating, others pulling out their phones to capture her fall. It's the perfect end to her public humiliation. She wanted to tear Malik down, but in the end, it's her own downfall that is recorded for all to see. Her mask of superiority has crumbled, and the crowd is left to witness her disgrace. The story isn't over, but for Victoria, it might as well be. The video exploded across social media like wildfire. In mere hours, millions had seen Malik's calm confrontation with Victoria. The initial wave of shock, then disbelief, turned into a chorus of support. "Did y'all see this?" flooded the comments as the video made its way across platforms. It wasn't just the luxury car or the scandalous accusation. It was Malik's dignified silence, his refusal to stoop to anger. The world was watching, and they were seeing him in a way they'd never expected. By the time the news outlets picked up the story, the narrative had shifted from mere gossip to something bigger. "Black tech mogul humiliated in Beverly Hills, turns the tables," screamed one headline. Another read, "Racial bias backfires, business tycoon takes control." The story was everywhere, transcending the confines of viral social media to become a national discussion on race, power, and dignity. The angle was clear. This wasn't just about one moment in time. This was about an industry, a community, and a country waking up to something that had been ignored for too long. As Malik's story gained momentum, the spotlight turned to Victoria Hale. Her privilege, once a shield, now became her downfall. The public outrage was swift. People dug into her past, her connections, her career. The truth came out, and her identity was no longer hidden behind the walls of her prestigious fashion job. The company, once proud to have her, now found themselves distancing themselves from her name. Within 48 hours, Victoria was fired, and social media was flooded with hashtags calling for accountability. She had been a symbol of systemic bias, but now she was its casualty. The luxury store, reeling from the backlash, issued a public apology. The statement promised immediate bias training for all employees across their branches. "We deeply regret the recent incident involving one of our customers and are committed to creating a more inclusive environment," the message read. It was an attempt to salvage their reputation, but the damage had already been done. The institution, too, had been exposed for its complicity in the systemic problem. The apology, while necessary, was merely the first step. The real work had to come from within. In the midst of it all, Malik posted a video. It wasn't filled with rage or gloating. Instead, his message was one of calm, reflective strength. "This isn't about revenge," he said, his voice steady. "It's about respect. It's about ensuring that no one ever feels like they have to prove their worth because of their skin color." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "We all have to be better. Not for me, not for the stores, but for everyone who comes after us." The video struck a chord. It wasn't about turning the tables, it was about setting a new standard for the future. As the story continued to unfold, Malik used his newfound platform for good. He donated $500,000 to an anti-racism nonprofit and launched a scholarship in his late mother's name, an initiative to help young people of color pursue careers in tech. It was a powerful statement that the fight for equality didn't end with one viral moment. His legacy would be about the change he brought, not just the attention he garnered. Turning pain into progress, his team called it, and it resonated deeply with those who followed his journey. Malik's actions reverberated beyond the immediate fallout. His dignified response, his unwavering strength in the face of dehumanization, made him a symbol of something much larger. It wasn't just about one confrontation at a store. It was about a movement for equality, for respect, for recognizing the humanity in each other. Malik had become a beacon of strength in a world that desperately needed it, and his story would be told for years to come, not just as a lesson in justice, but as a testament to the power of resilience. Have you ever been in a room, surrounded by people, but still felt like you didn't matter? Like your presence was overlooked, your voice unheard? It's a feeling many of us know all too well. The sting of judgment, the weight of bias pressing down on us without warning. Malik's story is a reminder of what it's like to fight against that invisibility. But it's not just his fight, it's something we all experience in different ways. Imagine yourself in Malik's position, a moment of grace in the face of injustice. Would you stay calm? Would you turn the other cheek? Or would you lash out? wanting to be heard at any cost. It's easy to say what you would do, but the reality is far more complex. Would you rise to the challenge, or would the weight of the world press down on you too hard? Every choice we make in these moments defines who we are and what we stand for. Think about it. What would you do if it were you? Now, it's your turn. Speak up. Don't let this moment pass without saying something. Like, comment, and share this story because your voice matters. By raising awareness and spreading Malik's message, you're part of the solution. It's time we all take action. Together. Your support could ignite the change we all desperately need. Let's make sure this fight for justice doesn't end here. Share this, and let's continue the conversation.